Welcome to the Gym Plus Coffee podcast. Welcome to episode 9. I'm Ian, producer of the podcast and member of the Gym Plus Coffee community team. This week we have a very special episode. Co-founder Niall Horgan sits down with world champion and Olympian Rhys McClenaghan. This episode was recorded way back in December when Niall was hell-bent on trying to beat guests in games of Jenga, so some of the references to times and events may seem a little bit out of date. In this episode we get a rare glimpse into Rhys' life and the work that goes on behind the scenes to become a world champion and Olympic athlete. Rhys talks about his passion for the sport and the sacrifices he has made to pursue his gymnastic dream. He talks about his disappointment in the Toyko Olympics and how the margin for error is so small that a simple finger a couple of millimeters out of place brought his whole routine crashing down. One of the most impressive things about Rhys is his optimism and his work ethic. He's very open about his disappointment immediately after the Toyko Olympics. But in true Rhys style, all he wanted to do was to get back training and flip that disappointment into motivation to be ready and better for next time. For those listening to audio only and wondering what all the pauses, laughs and loud noises are, just remember, this was recorded over a very intense game of Jenga. I won't spoil who won, but let's just say it was the guy who played the clarinet. Hope you enjoy.
Rhys, you are a European gold medalist. You are a Commonwealth gold medalist. Are you good at Jenga?
I'm not sure. I haven't played since I was about 6 years old, but I'll give it a go. Okay. I'm very competitive now.
I feel I'm up against it. So what I didn't mention there is you are now also recently a world gold medalist.
Yes.
So how has it been since last, 10 weeks?
Yeah, around that. It's been good.
Life-changing?
Life has been good. I felt like a weight is off my shoulders, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, because that's going into this sport, of course I dedicate my life to this sport. It's like constantly waiting for a moment where it all pays off.
Yeah.
And I feel like it paid off on that day. That's why my post-competition interview wasn't necessarily an interview. I just burst into tears.
Yeah, I know. It was amazing seeing that emotion, though.
Yeah, and it was the first time somebody had ever put world champion next to Rhys McClenaghan.
Yeah. And
I think when I just heard it out loud, then I just broke down. I almost see those post-competition interviews as an opportunity to maybe thank my coach and my parents,
yeah.
or say the right things to inspire the younger generation. But there was that was all overridden by
was it just this onslaught of emotion as it happened?
Yeah, I just couldn't pinpoint exactly what to even say. No words were going through my head.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to get words out. I just broke down into tears and just thought about how much that meant to me.
So, that's really interesting because when that happens, you can see how obviously much it means to you, and we'll talk about how much you've dedicated your life to it. But how did you keep all that emotion calm during the competition part of that? Because maybe you didn't know it was bubbling up, but obviously it was, to maintain your nerve while competing.
Yeah, for sure.
How was that?
It's such a difficult thing to do as well, especially on the pommel horse, because there's no breaks during the routine.
Yeah.
So there's no parts of the routine where you can stop and compose yourself and continue. And I think that's the only apparatus in gymnastics that has that, where there's just some continual skills going back to back. So there's no breaks. And I think that's why there's so many falls on the pommel horse.
Yeah.
It's often compared to the women's balance beam, because it's just, if you have any form of nerves or lapse of concentration, you're falling off. And it's the finest of margins too. But I guess to answer your question, when it comes to doing my routine and doing gymnastics, that's when I feel most comfortable.
Yeah.
That's when those days of practice competitions that we do in the gym.
So do you kind of go into autopilot a little bit?
A little bit, but then again, you don't want to be on autopilot too much, because then that's when the focus slips. So I guess that's why we do those practice competitions in training, because then it makes it familiar when you go to competition. It doesn't matter that there's 13,000 people in that arena. It doesn't matter that they're around you. It doesn't matter that there's a panel of judges judging your routine.
Yeah.
You're just doing what you've practiced hundreds of times in training.
Yeah.
So that means that the program worked, really.
Yeah. And then you kind of control the adrenaline. Mm-hmm. And did you know, do you know I always think about this, about gymnasts more than anyone. Like, do you know as it's going that you're doing well, or is it really only like, when you come off, you're like, I nailed that? And like, what's in your head during that period?
I mean, you shouldn't be thinking that, like, this is going so well, I just need to do 2 more skills.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that, but, it's hard not to do that. But I guess if I practice a very good routine every single day in training, then it doesn't like come as a surprise that I'm doing it in competition.
Yeah.
So I was going through the motions just like I was doing in training in the competition. The smile went on my face as soon as my feet hit the floor.
Yeah.
And that's when I could relax and celebrate and punch the air and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I try not to think like towards the end of the routine.
Yeah. Let me go for a go here. Hey, you need to put on top.
Oh yeah, my bad. See, it's been a while since
I know.
This.
Just let me get going. So, the 10 weeks since then, I've seen you. The reaction to you at the airport, people coming to see you, you're on over TV. I like to think you're kind of walking around the streets with the gold medal on, just getting free coffees and kissing babies and stuff. But like, how has it been? Are you more recognizable now? Have people been coming up to you? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, a little bit. I think I realized that I went to Lanzarote for my holiday, and people were like, I was on this like tour bus going around to different volcanoes and stuff, and people were like, coming up to me on the bus and be like, "Are you the gymnastics world champion?"
That is absolutely
so I'm not even like at home.
Yeah,
I'm getting recognized, so it's cool that it's got such a wide reach.
Yeah,
and more closely to home, it's cool that gymnastics is like has a face now.
Yeah,
that there's a gymnast out there winning medals, and hopefully that can just like spark ideas in parents' minds to like bring their children to gymnastics clubs.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's such a baseline sport for every other sport. Even if you don't like pursue an elite pathway in gymnastics, you can take all of those skills that you learn as a young child in gymnastics and bring it into GAA, hurling, rugby. And there's so many coaches, even like the boxing coaches, like even John Conlon has said to me that he knows when a gymnast comes into boxing because they've just got like such a good understanding of their body. Yeah. And I guess that's what gymnastics teaches you.
It does. It makes so much sense. And you see other kind of sports or disciplines come out now. I know like, gymnastics is a big movement in the kind of CrossFit community and being good at that. So as a basis, it is probably like really important for all sports. So did you go into gymnastics, if you can remember, thinking that you were just really sporty and this was just another sport to add to your list? Or were you did you always have more of a love for the kind of gymnastic sports and disciplines, and as you kind of started those early trainings when you were a kid?
I mean, I definitely didn't understand gymnastics when I was younger, but I was technically doing gymnastics before I stared. I taught myself how to do a backflip on the trampoline before I even went to gymnastics. So
how old were you then?
I was 6.
Right.
Yeah. So I think when my mum and dad seen that, they were like, "Yeah, I think gymnastics is maybe for this guy."
Yeah.
But I was still doing other sports. I was going to swimming, I was doing football, and then at the age of 8, that's when I made the decision to like give up every other sport and just focus on gymnastics.
Wow. Because that's early, right? To kind of maybe pick a lane.
Yeah, it's a relatively mature decision, I guess, for an 8-year-old, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think that
probably shows how competitive you were, right? That you were like, I'm all in on this.
Yeah, definitely. So I remember the conversation with my mum. I had to leave gymnastics early one evening to go to football practice. Yeah. And it almost hurt me that I needed to do that. I needed to leave the squad. Yeah. I knew that the guys were in the gym training, getting new skills, enjoying training. And I had to leave to go play football. I loved football, but I loved gymnastics so much more. Yeah. And that's why I said to my mum, I was like, I don't want to leave early anymore. I wanted to stay in gymnastics. So my parents supported that, and here we are today.
My experience is so less. Oh my God! I almost went early. So less cool than that. I remember I was kind of sport mad growing up, so playing football and stuff, and having to leave football because my mum made me go to a clarinet lesson. Yeah. So that was my experience. I was like, please let me quit music so I can play sport. And my mum made me stick to the clarinet for about 5 years, which I've never forgiven her for. So.
Do you still play?
I do not. I do not. And we might cut
Could
that actually
you still play?
from. We have one right here. No. I could not. I definitely couldn't. But I think my mum was and is a music teacher, so she wanted me to be kind of more into music. But I disappointed her and went full into sport. This feels already like really solid. I know. So when you kind of then were 8 years old, you want to compete more or be kind of much stronger at gymnastics. Did you go down a certain path then when you're like, you know, even at 8 or 9, like where you was that young enough to then start getting on, you know, like the kind of county programs or the country programs, or when does that all kind of kick in?
I guess there's not too many programs like that in gymnastics because there's not too many participants. Oh, well, there is a lot of participants actually, but not in the elite programs.
Yeah.
So at foundation level, it's actually great to see how much the sport is growing.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of seeing how we can hold on to those really talented gymnasts going into, you know, their teenage years and keeping them in sport. I guess that's just in general. It's an issue with sport, with young people in sport.
Yeah.
They tend to leave as soon as like the exams come in school, and I guess it's figuring out different ways to hold on to them.
Yeah.
And nurture them until they're at that elite level. So I guess.
So were you like, as again, you know, 8 or 10-year-old, like what were you kind of taking your inspiration from? Was it just kind of the sport and the athletes that you'd kind of see in it, or can you remember what was kind of driving you at that time to kind of keep training as clearly as much as you would have?
Yeah, well, I think the overarching theme of my career is just enjoying what I done.
Yeah.
And that's what kept me coming back to the gym every single day.
You were just obsessed.
Yeah, I was definitely obsessed, and even when I would leave the gym, sometimes in tears or like my hands were bleeding or something, my mum and dad always made sure that I still enjoyed what I'd done, even though it was a bad session. They're still like,
"Are you okay?"
Yeah, are you okay? And I really felt that support with my mum and dad. There was certainly never any like, well, you need to go back to training the next day, and you know, be better. There was no pressure in that way. It was always support from my parents, so I think that really helps. But then again, seeing gymnasts on TV, like, you know, I'm from, I guess, the era of growing up and watching TV and watching sports on TV, and I took so much inspiration from seeing, you know, even guys from different countries around the world winning world titles, seeing how much it meant to them, and that's what I constantly wanted to strive for.
Yeah.
And even seeing like the skills that they were doing, I was like, oh, well, I think I could do that skill. Like, what's the next step to being able to do that skill in that routine? And then you're constantly building and building, wanting to be like your idols.
But what I think is really cool about that is like, you kind of, you know, I suppose went against the trends a lot on that. Like now, and you mentioned it, and I want to go back to it, is like, you know, Irish gymnastics has a face, and like people have been following your career over the last 5-6 years, and it's, you know, there's so much kind of excitement about you, and you know what that means then for people who are much younger taking up the sport. But you know, thinking back to when you were doing it, there wasn't, maybe with no disrespect to anyone, you know, that kind of that high profile face, and there would have been in other sports. So how did you find that? Was it difficult for you, you know, quitting football and going into gymnastics, or, you know, like how did you kind of process that? Because it was very brave at the time, you know, for somebody who's competitive and athletic to kind of pick gymnastics.
Yeah, because even when I was doing football and somebody asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'd be like, I want to play at Arsenal, or I want to be in the Premier League. Same with swimming. When I was doing these swimming galas at my local leisure centre, I would imagine myself in the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know, so it wasn't just gymnastics that I had these visions for. I must have just been very ambitious when I was younger, and the more I got better at gymnastics, the more I enjoyed the sport. I started imagining myself much more in that gymnastics arena rather than any other sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess there was very little gymnasts to look up to at that senior level, especially. One of the only ones that I would have trained alongside when I was about 8 was my coach, now, Luke Carson, and when he was a gymnast. So it was good to have even just that one person in the gym that was doing these crazy skills that I really wanted to do one day. And I actually see similarities between my gymnastics and his. In some ways.
So I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You were definitely, I could see one of those guys seeing someone, even if he's 10 years older than you, like doing something crazy, and you're like straight in and practice that for about 3 weeks till you can do it.
Yeah, definitely. Or at least asking my coach, like, how can I learn that? You know, because it's such a long process to learn these skills. But if I was even in some way doing them, or at least doing the preparations for them, I really wanted to get those skills. So I guess, it's important to have role models within the sport, and I'm glad that I can hopefully be that role model for many young gymnasts across the country now.
Are you thinking about that already? Because I mean, you know, you've achieved a lot, and you're still really young in your career. But are you already thinking about that? You know, paying it forward and a kind of responsibility on you know, making yourself available to kind of young athletes in the sport in Ireland, which is totally acceptable. Is that something you kind of see in another few years once you've got, you know, a couple of more years under your belt?
No, I think it's good to do now, and it's good to be conscious that you can be a role model, and I almost see it as a responsibility. You know, and maybe we won't even have another world champion for 10 years. Who knows? You know, so I may as well.
Because you'll win all the next one. You'll be the only world champion.
I'll be the only world champion. But I do always say this, that I want the younger generation to surpass my achievements by a long shot. But I'm certainly not going to make it easy for them. You know? But I do see that role as a responsibility, and it's certainly a responsibility that I don't take lightly. So I want to make sure that I do everything I can. You know, I'm even trying to take this gold medal around all the different clubs in Ireland, and just try and get them to see it, to touch it, to feel that it's real and that it's possible for an Irish gymnast to do.
It's okay. This is steady. Yes. So, like, I think that's amazing to see. And again, you could even see it from the publicity you're getting at the moment, and like all the people at the airport and everything, you know, just this real interest in you and your career, and been following it. And I think, you know, from a public perspective, so we see the kind of the external view of that, right? You know, so like we see at the championships, and have kind of, you know, seen the highs, mainly highs, but lows of, you know, of certain stages of that. And then, you know, everything that's kind of the success that's come off the back of it. But what I'm always fascinated is like what's happening behind the scenes, because I think, you know, be it sport or business or all these other areas, like there's one kind of perception that goes out there, and there's another one that's kind of behind the scenes. So like, what does that look like for you? And I mean everything, right? I want to know, like, you know, even just like the intensity of the training and the kind of commitment you have to give to that, to just the sort of the kind of the mental battle that you have on, you know, to do this and get out and, you know, keep that motivation high. So like, you know, talk to me about that for a minute. You know, there's the success we see, but like, what's it like behind the scenes for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like what you're describing there is the iceberg theory.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you understand this with the business, that there's so much more work going on behind the scenes. You know, the tip of the iceberg is what everybody sees, is the brand, the marketing, the great work that you guys have done. In my case, it's the performance on the world stage. But then below that is miles and miles of ice that nobody ever sees below the surface. And
I like the duck analogy as well, of like a cam duck, and then it's just like frantic, you know, like legs.
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. It's like, you know, most of the time I'm in that gym empty with nobody around me but my coach and myself, and that's something that nobody sees. I try to do my best, so I try to put it all online, try to put some things here and there to maybe show people, like, this is what's going on when I'm not competing. I'm still training. But
so what does, give us some numbers there, or hours, like, you know, you know, what's a training week look like for you? Like, you know, how many hours are you doing? What's your day look like?
So when I was younger and I had to do gymnastics around schoolwork, I would have done 4 hours in the evening of training. So I would have finished school, went straight to training, done 4 hours of training, and then got home about like 9:30. So that's like a full day.
That
was when I was in school. Now it's actually a lot more spread out, and I'm rather than doing like a full-time job in that 4-hour space in the evening when I was younger, I'm doing it as a full-time job now. So it's what we do is we don't even like count hours anymore. We don't have training slots. We can move it about and stay there as long as needs be. Just as long as we get the program done. So roughly, you know, I would do maybe 4 or 5 hours of training in the gymnastics gym. Mm-hmm. I would go maybe get physio. I would speak with my nutritionist, doctors, just to see how I can keep the body healthy under those training conditions. Then I would maybe go to the strength and conditioning gym. Yeah. Work on, you know, injury prevention stuff and general fitness if there's anything that we can't do in the gym that we need to do in the fitness gym. So it's certainly a full-time job, and that was almost like a breath of sigh of relief when I left school and made gymnastics my full-time job and moved down here to Dublin, and I have that sports campus with that team of people around me.
And out of all that, and this is kind of coming back on your point about gymnastics being such a good like kind of sort of base level sport to start with. So you've got like your fitness, you've got your strength, like you've got your like different types of strength, like your core strength going into it, and then like your just agility. Like any of those bits that you've struggled more with over the years, like, you know, or that you've had to focus on more, or is because you've been doing it from such a young age, they kind of all kind of developed at the same time?
Yeah, I get. Injury is always just the main thing that is a struggle with any athlete, I'm sure, because when you're at the top level, you need to find where the limits of your body reaches. Unfortunately,
when your hands are bleeding, like that's probably a message.
Yeah, but I mean now, you know, my hands have calluses on them. You know, that's hard skin now, so that's something that's like a rite of passage for a gymnast to do that. It's not something that you get upset about when you're younger, when your hands rip. It's like a badge of honor.
This is amazing. It's happening.
Everyone's like, But I guess now is figuring out where my limits are, and the first couple of years of my senior career, I reached those limits. So I got, you know, stress fractures in my wrist. I had surgery on my shoulder. Those were me finding my limits, and now I'm a lot more careful with what we can and can't do, and a lot more focus goes in. It's like a wake-up call as well when you get those injuries, to really focus on not getting injured, because if you're injured and you're not at the competitions, I mean, you got to be in it to win it. Yeah. Really. So that was the realization from those limits I reached.
It's time for a quick break. I hope you're enjoying the episode. Just to let you know that we have a special discount code for podcast listeners. If you go to our website and enter POD15, you'll get 15% off. That's POD15 for 15% off on all Gym Plus Coffee websites. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and turn on that notification button so you never miss an episode. But let's get back to the chat.
Like the resilience you need to go like for the last however amount of years you've been doing it, and kind of keep that motivation up. You're under pressure here. My God. You're under pressure.
They're all so solid.
Do it.
There's nowhere I can go. Come on, one of you guys must be loosey-goosey.
Oh no.
It's not over yet. There we go.
That's that resilience I was just talking about. But again, that like always fascinates me with like sports people who are at top of their game. Like there's the physical element of it. There's trying to avoid injury. There's you know, those things that you mentioned. But just the sort of the mental kind of resilience you've had. Has that been something again that's just come naturally? Have you worked on that? Have you got coaches for that side of the things as well?
I guess like my coach, my primary coach, Luke, he is such an important part of my gymnastics career, and I think gymnasts in general, their coach is so important. Yeah. I would have seen my coach more than I see my parents on a regular basis when I was younger, because as I said, going into school, leaving school, going to training, then I would have seen them for maybe an hour in the evening when I was doing my homework or eating my dinner. So that shows how much of an important role a coach has. It's not just a job where, you know, you go in, get the paycheck for coaching the kids and then go home. You're one of their carers. You're guiding them in life. You have such a big influence on them, and that's what Luke realised. Yeah. So I would almost see that Luke as my coach, a friends, and then also like my psychologist.
Yeah,
So
he wears a few hats.
because as soon as I walk through those doors, he's looking at me, seeing how my mood is, seeing how far he can push me in that session. So I guess that's where I learned a lot of that resilience, or maybe even the psychological aspect of my gymnastics career is from him.
You guys obviously have this, amazing relationship at this stage, but does that come because he knows you so well, he can pick up your mood, or are you kind of open on that, being like, look, I'm not feeling it today, what do I need to do? Or how has that kind of relationship evolved over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I became a senior athlete, past the age of 18, I started to feel like I was able to communicate with him a lot more. I always was able to communicate with him when I was younger, but it was certainly a lot more of him reading me, moody teenager. That's that type of thing that he was able to see and see how far he can push me on a particular day. But now it is certainly, I'd say, like 50% each of like having that input. So even if he has an idea of what to do with the routine, and I could easily disagree with him, say, no, this is what I think.
Yeah.
It's such an important thing to communicate like that with your coach, because he's making the programs, I'm following those programs, but if I have an issue with it, I'll certainly bring it up to him.
Yeah, so it's really collaborative at this stage.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we're like business partners.
Yeah.
We're like business partners on this journey to conquering the world.
Yeah, love it. And you've conquered the world, so you just need to do it again and again and again.
Yeah, that's the plan anyway.
You do maybe have one mountain left to climb, which is the Olympics, right? So you've got the others under your belt at this stage, or around your neck at this stage, and you've been there once before. Tell me about your last experience there, and then kind of how that's maybe shaping how you're looking ahead to the next Olympics.
Yeah. So the last Olympics, that was a weird one. First of all, it was like a 5-year cycle.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. So it was delayed that 1 year, which was a disruption. Of course, I was training in my back garden for a number of months.
So there was a shutdown where you obviously, you couldn't...
Yeah. Well, luckily we had a pommel horse, and me and my dad made it.
That is lucky.
We made it to the second day of lockdown, and we're like, right, okay, what can we do here to make a home gym?
Yeah.
So second day of lockdown, me and my dad just built like 5 walls pretty much, and it was like a 12 feet by 12 feet cube attached to my back garden.
Wow.
So that's where I pretty much lived for the entirety of lockdown. I just had the pommel horse just about fit in. Like my feet, when I was swinging around the pommel, were like grazing the wood.
It was probably good training. It was like you have to be so precise.
Exactly, it was very precise. There was a number of times that like flew off and like went into the wall and stuff, but it was fine. It was fine, and I was glad that I had that opportunity to train like that, even if it was like the basics.
Yeah.
But it was still, of course, a delay of the Olympic Games. When they did come around the following year, it was still like a strange scenario with COVID. It was very stressful.
Yeah.
I didn't see like friends or family for like months leading up to that competition, because if I got COVID, I wasn't going. And that was just that was the way of it.
That must be intense, or like just stressful, because I mean, everyone was stressed during it, and maybe afraid that there's maybe something on the horizon you missed, but like none of us had the Olympics on the horizon. Like how, I don't know, was that like just you were like, don't come near me, don't touch me, don't look at me?
Pretty much. I mean, it's like if all of your work and your job boils down to one day and one moment, that's what the Olympic Games is like for us, and it was pretty crazy. Even when I was out there at the Olympics, like friends and family were like sending me news articles saying the Olympics are cancelled. I was like, I'm here. I'm out here in Japan. So it was just so much. There was a lot of noise around that Olympics, of course. And
then obviously, is there like testing multiple times a day and all this kind of stuff?
Every single day we had the test. So if any of those tests were positive, we'd be out of that village. But we kept our heads together, and we went to the Olympics. We were training great on the lead up to that Olympic Games. In the qualifications of the Olympics, that was such a special moment. Yeah. It was one of the best moments of my life for sure, because it was, again, I got emotional. It was like that overwhelming feeling of finally calling myself an Olympian. Yeah. And then also having a score that would qualify to the final, the first ever Irish Olympic finalist for gymnastics. So that was a very, very good day. And when I look back on the Olympics, that's a day I always remember, because I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
I look at the positives and everything, and that was such an amazing day, and a day I'll never forget. But then it came to the finals, and then sport showed its true colours, and showed its ways, and like my finger just got caught on the handle of one of the skills, and that was it. That's those fine
margin
margins.
of error is so small.
Because, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, there's no stopping, there's no readjusting. It's like that constant momentum on pommel horse. So if one finger touches the handle wrong, you're off. And that's just what happened that day.
So, like, what was the aftermath of that for the rest of that day? Like, you mentioned you're optimist. Could you just kind of move on, or were you beating yourself up? Were you kind of more on the kind of the sad emotion? Where did you kind of sit after that for the next couple of days?
I was so disappointed. I was so angry. In my post-competition interview, I let everybody know that I was so disappointed. But again, switched it into a positive even in that moment.
And people's hearts were breaking for I remember watching it and just being like, everyone just saw your own frustrations in it.
Yeah, it hurt because even when I was getting those interviews done, I could see behind me they were presenting the medals to the pommel finals, and I was like, no, I think that's where I should be. So I felt that disappointment, but I know that the one overarching positive of that disappointment is that I can flip it into motivation. When a huge disappointment like that happens, something happens in your brain where you're just more hungry and more focused than ever.
Yeah.
And that happened exactly. I even woke up the next day just being like, I want to go to training right now. I want to fix that error that I had in the competition. And there was just a fire in my belly.
That's it's just it's clearly a credit to you on why you're so ambitious and where you are, but I'm sure even some of the best athletes there ever has been, need a few days off after something like that. So whereas you took that and fed that into kind of motivation to just get back on the horse.
Sure, yeah, nice pun, good job. Has that ever happened to you?
Do you know what? You're probably right. It probably has in ways. Like when I think about kind of different parts with the business over the last couple of years, that if anything, kind of you'd expect that after either a real high or a real low in the business, you should take a break. And to be honest, it nearly kind of pushes you on going forward. So I think kind of days that we've found real that that Gym Plus Coffee has done well, or there's been real wins, we probably haven't celebrated it well enough, and you kind of are more like, okay, what's next? What's the next big thing? And so it is a bit of a tough one because no matter what happens, you have that ambition to keep pushing yourself forward. So I can certainly relate to that. Sometimes either after wins or losses, you should maybe kind of take a little bit of time, but sometimes that's hard and it's against.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that. Yeah. Because even after, me and my coach would have been like that exactly. After European Championships or Commonwealth Games, after winning those titles, we're like, right, what's next?
Yeah.
What's next? We've still got the world to conquer. We've still got Olympics. But after this competition, I actually sent my coach a message and was like, all right, I know how we are.
Yeah.
Let's enjoy this one.
That's very mature.
Let's really enjoy this one. And I guess that's something you only learn when you go through those motions.
Yeah.
And go through that years of, maybe disappointment or successes that you've overlooked. That's something you only realize when you do go through multiple years of it and realize I need to enjoy this one right now.
I think it comes back to I'll go back to our duck analogy of maybe kind of you are someone feeling that there is that maybe calmness about it, whereas I think the reason that sometimes you don't take a break or you kind of keep pushing is because you're very aware that there's just legs desperately trying to power things going forward, so you need to focus on driving that, even if it feels like it's a big win or something good has happened. So that's probably a very sort of mature moment for you, a very comfortable moment to you, where you kind of, and I'm sure it's not even a big break, but at least you can enjoy this little bit, knowing that you nailed it, you did your best, you're in a good, you feel good about where you are, and you can come back and kind of do that. So I Yeah, I'll have to learn how to do that a little bit.
Yeah,
for
for sure.
Yeah.
And then also it's how are you gonna do it?
I think this is gonna go this time. Oh, I found a sneaky one.
Nicely done. Yeah, it's certainly a process to be able to learn those strategies.
Yeah.
And how to deal with failure and success as well.
And how do you relax then? So either like now, well, I know you're back training a little bit, but like, you know, in between the going around and kissing babies and getting free coffees and stuff, how were you relaxing? Or again, then even after the last Olympics when it was a bit more of a disappointed, how did you kind of just distract yourself?
I still exercise. Like I stick by it that I need to be physically exerted at least once a day.
Yeah.
And that keeps whatever chemicals are in my brain right. And if I don't do that, I feel drowsy, I feel tired.
Yeah,
like, in fact, I had done that a couple of days. I had like maybe 5 days off straight of no exercise after World Championships. I slept for 2 hours in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I never have. I just my body just
your body's
shut down.
like
And that was so weird to me. So I kept exercising.
And so if you're not, let's say, doing gymnastics, would it be going to the gym or go for a run? What would you do?
Or a fast walk or like a hike or something. I love being outdoors, so anything that physically exerts me. I feel like I need to do at least once a day if I'm not even training. But I feel like I'm still at my happiest, and there's something nice about going into the gymnastics center and moving your entire body in exercise and not just focusing on one part of the body. Really. So it's something I need is exercise.
What about when you go on holidays then, like when you're in Lanzarote and stuff, can you chill out on the beach for a little bit?
I had to sneak off, leave my girlfriend on the side of the pool and just sneak
just
off.
Go for a sneaky run or something,
That's exactly it. So as long as I was exercising during that day, then I could say, good job, you went and exercised, you've done something productive, come back and lay in the sun lounge all the night, really. Yeah. But I always need to do it at least once a day.
Rhys, you've mentioned your coach a number of times, and clearly the relationship you have, and I know you've mentioned your parents, but either getting you into gymnastics or building a gym out your back. So clearly, like it's even though it's an individual sport, you haven't got here yourself. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Like, how have people in your lives kind of affected you and got you to where you are today? Like, has it essentially taken a community to get to where you are today?
Yeah, more or less. Certainly a sporting community. Because I feel like that's where we're from on this island. Whether we like it or not, it's sport dominant, and for a reason too, because we do so great. We punch above our weight for sure. So when there's always that community support of any sport or any discipline, which when I obviously I'm a gymnast, that's an unusual sport, but nonetheless there's still that support from everybody that I'm surrounded by, and that's a great thing to have. Up the road from me is Rory McIlroy. And that's crazy to think how close we all are together. And I think that's, again, going back to the role model side of things and that inspiration that sparks. It's very powerful. I always remember going to these events when I was even a younger gymnast, where there would be a key speaker where, might be like, I don't know, Carl Frampton or Rory McIlroy, and I would just hear their words that they were saying and take so much inspiration from that. So I hope that I can do the same now. It's like this constant cycle of
but it is amazing. I kind of saw something recently, and it was mentioning some of the current Irish athletes and where they rank in the world. And you were mentioned alongside them as our world champion gymnast, and I think what that does for the kind of I suppose the younger budding sports stars. But also, I think for just the community in general, supporting, seeing people like that represent the country so well, and represent, kind of Ireland so well, I think is really amazing to see. And I think we talk about that with Gym Plus Coffee a lot as well, is that, trying to like grow our business in a way that makes us proud and our community proud, because it's so important to what we do. And I think while there's kind of all this franticness behind the scenes, you know, we kind of really want to be that kind of that business out there that people can point to and say, like, they represent us, they do us proud. And we've talked about, you know, hopefully getting that support from you know, our community in the same way an athlete or a sports team would get that. And I know that's a big ambition and a big responsibility, but it's definitely something that we talk about a lot internally and kind of try to think about in that way, and then in turn try pay it forward in some way, either not just in sort of business circles, but even in just you know, creating opportunities and experiences for community involvement. So
definitely. And supporting that lifestyle too. I mean, just like Gym Plus Coffee does, any sports person promotes that healthy lifestyle, and you know, being active in general and making that a part of your daily routine or weekly routine to you know, go on a hike or, you know, do something active on a daily basis, just like I say that I need it on a daily basis. You know, maybe everybody else needs it too.
Yeah, I think so, and certainly needs that little bit of inspiration every so often. Oh, I sneak one in there. I wasn't expecting that. The gauntlet has been set for you there. But I think again, naturally, look, people are social, so I think people, you know, want to look at doing those stuff with others around them, and in the same way you're getting inspired from different athletes that you looked at growing up. I think people can get that inspiration from even just you know, the people who live down the road from them, who they see, you know, with a nice lifestyle.
I think so.
I'm gonna pause because this is
getting sketchy. It's gonna go.
It's gonna go.
I'm not gonna give up though.
I get the gold medal. There you go.
Congrats, man. Congrats.
Thank you. Look at that. I feel I'm taking your gold medal.
Yeah. You've earned it. You've earned it.
So kind of just before we finish up, Rhys, I know there's kind of the obvious stuff on the horizon, but what are your kind of goals and ambitions for the next couple of years? If we check back in a couple of years' time, what would you want to have achieved?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about achieving this lifetime dream of mine of becoming world champion, now I'm able to start looking past that.
Yeah.
I've gotten over that hurdle. Now, can I get 2 world titles? Can I defend the world title? Can I get that one medal that's missing from the collection, that Olympic gold medal?
Yeah.
And that's certainly my goals for the future.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for those opportunities.
And maybe a day off training at some stage.
Maybe.
What I would like to say, Rhys, is just on that note, like, for us as a business and as a community, it's absolutely amazing to have you as one of our ambassadors. I think I already, you know, knew you and have been following you and have seen everything externally, but to kind of learn a little bit more about you as a person today, what drives you and motivates you, and you've just all the characteristics that we as a business want to portray. So thank you for being one of our ambassadors. Thank you for representing us so well. Thank you for being bad at Jenga. Good luck with everything in the future. We'll chat again, obviously, before the Olympics, but I know we'll maybe get one more game of Jenga in before then.
Yeah, let's do it. It's class meeting you now.
Cheers.
All right.
You've been listening to the Gym Plus Coffee podcast. If you enjoy these conversations, don't forget to follow us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and turn on that notification button so you never miss an episode. Don't forget, we have a special discount code for podcast listeners. Go to our website and enter POD15 for 15% off. That's POD15 for 15% off on all Gym Plus Coffee websites. Thanks for listening.